They say Sheikh Hamdan disappeared from Dubai for months. They say no one knows where he is gone. But you know, don't you? You have always known. Because I did not disappear from Dubai. I disappeared from a world that no longer contained you. And there is a difference so vast between those two truths that entire deserts could not hold the silence in between. You never knew what happened the night after you left. The palace went quiet, not the peaceful kind of quiet, the kind that follows a detonation, the kind where the walls still stand, but everything behind them has been hollowed out. Servants walked softer, advisors stopped knocking, my brothers looked at me the way men look at ruins they once called architecture, and I let them. I let every one of them believe whatever story they needed, because the real story, the only story, was something I could never say aloud. I left because staying meant pretending you never existed. And I am many things. I am a prince trained to wear masks heavier than crowns. I am a man who learned silence before he learned speech. I am the heir to a skyline built on ambition so sharp it cuts the clouds. But I am not, I have never been, a man capable of pretending you were nothing. What you don't see is what that cost me. Every headline wondered, every royal correspondent speculated. They said health, they said diplomacy, they said secret negotiations with foreign powers. They crafted entire fictions because the truth was too simple and too devastating for anyone to print. He left because she was gone, and without her, the throne was just a chair. I drove into the desert the first night. No convoy, no security detail, just the engine and the dunes, and the kind of darkness that doesn't forgive you for entering it. I parked where the road ended and the sand began, and I sat there until the sun rose like a wound across the horizon, and I spoke your name, not to summon you, not to mourn you, but to remind myself that the syllables still worked, that the letters hadn't dissolved the way everything else had. And still, I could feel you everywhere and find you nowhere. That is what disappearing means. It means the world loses you, but you lost the world long before. Do you remember the first time you touched my hand and did not pull away? I do. I remember it the way astronomers remember the first time they witnessed a star being born, not with logic, but with reverence. We were standing on the terrace above the marina, and the wind carried salt and jasmine and the distant hum of a city that believed it owned me. You were looking at the water, not at me, and your fingers grazed mine against the railing, and you stayed. You simply stayed. What you didn't know, what I never told you, is that I stopped breathing. Not metaphorically, not poetically. My lungs forgot their purpose, because in that single devastating second, I understood something no crown, no empire, no army of advisors had ever taught me. I understood that power means nothing when a woman's touch can undo you more completely than any enemy ever could. You were never supposed to be in that room the first evening. Do you remember? The reception was for diplomats, for ministers with rehearsed smiles and agendas folded inside their breast pockets. You were there because of a minor logistics role, a name on a secondary list, a clerical accident that I now believe was written by fate in ink that cannot be erased. I saw you before you saw me, and something ancient turned over inside my chest like a key finding a lock it was never meant to open. And still, you looked at me as though I were ordinary. That is what destroyed me. That is what saved me. You looked past the title, past the security, past the weight of a last name that makes grown men stand straighter. You looked at me and saw, what? A man. Just a man, standing in a room full of power, holding nothing. We spoke for 11 minutes that night. I counted. I have never counted minutes before. Time was something I commanded, not something I submitted to. But you changed the physics of my existence without even trying. Every sentence you offered was unhurried. Every pause you left was an invitation I wanted to spend years accepting. You never knew that after you left that reception, I asked your name 4 times, not because I forgot it, because I wanted to hear it spoken aloud by different voices to confirm it was real. You were real. You were so terrifyingly real. The court found out before I was ready. They always do. Palaces are built on marble, but they breathe through whispers, and whispers in royal halls do not simply travel, they mutate. They arrive at the council chamber wearing armor and carrying accusations. What you don't know is what they said about you behind doors you were never allowed to enter. They called you a disruption, a variable, a risk to alignment. They used words so clinical they could drain the blood of a love story and leave only the skeleton of strategy. One advisor, a man whose loyalty I never questioned until that moment, placed a dossier on my desk. Your name printed on the cover like a diagnosis. Your background, your family's history, your education, your social reach, every photograph ever taken of you at public events, time-stamped, cross-referenced, cataloged with the precision of surveillance dressed as concern. I read every page, and then I closed it. And then I looked at him and said nothing for so long that he understood the nothing was louder than any command I had ever given. They wanted me to choose. That is what palaces do. They frame love as a decision between the heart and the heritage, and then they build the architecture of guilt around whichever door you walk through. My mother spoke to me once, only once, about you. She said, "There are women who are beautiful, and there are women who are possible. Wisdom is knowing the difference." And still, I chose you, silently, completely, without announcement. But here is what no one tells you about choosing love inside a palace. The walls choose back. The resistance did not come as a single blow. It came as temperature. The room grew colder, invitations shifted, seats at formal dinners rearranged so subtly that only someone watching for erasure would notice. They were removing you from the architecture of my future, one stone at a time. You felt it. I know you did. I saw the way your confidence began to crack, not in your words, never in your words, but in the hesitation before you entered a room, the way you started arriving already bracing for impact. You never told me, but I saw. A prince trained in diplomacy learns to read what people hide more fluently than what they speak. And the tragedy is, I let it continue one day too long.